Abusia mamo bibi akwaba na me informbra mega TV and platform we eso. Abusia Kwesi Pratt Junior edi nsimbi ababontin na ochiremu a yewra Attorney General ye Dominic Ayine cases na yewra President Akufo-Addo na owo so a ye owura we ye Godfred Odame. I think say yebo Godfred Odame, yes. Then Attorney General na Odia it take about almost 8 years. Yewra John the money Mahama obi yewra Dominic Ayine ene we discontinue those cases ni na we twa so no. Ochiremu a eye no kware Kwesi Pratt chiremu a eye pass we twa so because that cases it is indeed na chiremu say omunya evidence bi amfa mo the victims in the kwadu anase the corporate no omunya bibi amfa mo kwadu na yewra Kwesi Pratt Junior echiremu a se mo be kaya Richard Jakwa any atofos in case no ebe wi achire na Godfred Odame any Richard Jakwa air force se obepe force chese ensem bebre enti such a case no ene ko yewra Dominic Ayine aba as an Attorney General na say we discontinue there is nothing wrong with it. Yewra Kwesi Pratt eka chire mu say the raided na course e Ken Ofori Atta ni fie. In fact, illegal and the corporate must be punished severely. Ochiremu a eti amra because unkita warrant and I say mokane saying arrest warrant and now unkita permit so obeko obi fie a ebasana you are embarrassing the people the person. Osanchiremu a yewra OSP Office of the Special Prosecutor arrest now or they are taking frata hono or they are to no so. Let me say and yet it is unlawful which is illegal to do that. If a court of Omokan is saying competent of court and as a court of law and kwani beat me amasa arrest warrant no and at the Attorney General nti OSP na de oye no. In fact yewra Kwesi Pratt Junior chemo ne nya adwen yenko ne nkutie we eye sinanimbu it shows so allergy and allergy pra omushia so ewo Pan Africa in somebody to dry koba bidna kaina ebeto aso yakopon koso a ishira
that some armed men and plainclothes persons had invaded the residence of the former Minister of Finance, Mr. Ofori Atta. Indeed, we're all looking for answers to the very nagging questions which were thrown up when I heard the special prosecutor make statements on the incidents. The special prosecutor said clearly that the incident may have been arranged by Mr. Ken Ofori Atta in order to provide the basis for smearing him and his office. He indicated that he knew those who had perpetrated that act, but refrained from mentioning names because it could jeopardize further investigations. And I was completely shocked. I was shocked to the extent that morning I had seen photographs of those who had raided the house. And I saw them in full military combat gear, some of them actually armed to the teeth. And I said to myself that if former ministers could organize such numbers of well-armed, uniformed persons to to raid houses, what else couldn't they do? That was very frightening. It was a really serious national security situation. Who had the power, the ability to mobilize such armed men to do what was done at Mr. Ken Ofori Atta's house? But you see, the matter keeps getting complicated. I also heard Honorable Mahama Ayariga actually apologized for the act. He actually apologized profusely for the act. And I ask the same questions that everybody is asking. Was he the man who sent the people to the house? How was he involved in that act to warrant his rendering an apology? Not a private apology, a public apology in Parliament. What did he know about the act? Because if indeed Mr. Mahama Ayariga is innocent, did not know anything about what had happened and so on, was not involved in what had happened, his government was not involved, what he should have done was to call for investigations into that act to establish the facts for an informed reaction to what had happened. Not to apologize. Because to apologize is to admit that you have done something wrong. You or your government have done something wrong. So that apology was very, very strange, exceedingly strange. You understand? But then he apologizes, and then it appears that for him, that's the end of the matter. That cannot be the end of the matter. Listen, if it is true that this whole thing was orchestrated by Mr. Ken Ofori Atta, as the OSP alleges, my goodness, we are in trouble. Now, if it is not true that all of this was orchestrated by Mr. Ken Ofori Atta himself, and that some strange individuals orchestrated it, it's also very frightening. Now, I think that all of us, whether we are members of the Movement for Change, the New Patriotic Party, or the National Democratic Congress, or CPP, have an obligation to stand up for the rights of citizens, to protect citizens from arbitrariness, and so on. We have a responsibility so to do. Because today, it may be Mr. Ken Ofori Atta that we don't like. We may have reason not to like. Tomorrow, it can be Solomon Owusu. The next day, it may be Sana. The following day, it may be Madam Lodina Mahama, and so on. So when we stand up for the abuse, against the abuse of the fundamental rights of citizens, we stand up for all of us. Now, is it true that those who raided the house did so without a warrant? And if they did so without a warrant, then they committed a crime. If they did so without a warrant, then they blatantly violated the rights of a citizen. And what I expect to happen is prompt investigation and punishment for those criminals. Because if on your own, you go and mobilize soldiers and plainclothesmen and you raid somebody's house without a warrant and so on, you are committing a crime. And that crime ought to be punished. Not just punished, but severely punished to serve as a deterrent to others. You see? My brother Chumbuafu spoke a lot about what others have been through and so on. I can tell many stories. I can tell the story of my friend, Kwame Ajima, who was arrested in Ho for his opposition to the economic recovery program that the PNDC brought about. He himself was a cadre of the revolution, or described himself as a cadre of the revolution. Within 24 hours, he was shot with 5 others at the border guards headquarters where they were being held as prisoners. I don't want that to happen again. I don't want that to happen to anybody, no matter what party they belong to. You understand? I recall the case of Yeye Boy, and this is very well documented. Yeye Boy, who was a herbalist and spiritualist, whose dead body was recovered from somewhere around the whole sports stadium because somebody had alleged that he was doing juju against the leader of the revolution at the time. I don't want that to happen again. You understand? So many things have happened in the past, and there's no doubt in my mind at all that in the last 8 years of the MPP administration, the Akufo-Addo administration, horrible things happened to innocent people. There's no doubt at all in my mind. Okay? But that is no excuse for perpetrating those criminal acts in violation of the rights of citizens. And I am completely disgusted at any raid on anybody's house without legal authority. We must condemn it with all the vehemence we can find. And I expect that there'll be a full-scale investigation, proper investigation into this act of banditry, and that those responsible will be punished according to the laws of our country. And there can be no compromise on this matter. That's number one. Now, number two. As far as I know, unless there is any evidence to the contrary, as we speak in the studio now, no matter what Ken Ofori Atta has done or may have done, he has not even been charged. He has not even been charged. Now, under the laws of Ghana, no accused persons is compelled to give evidence against himself. And indeed, if the police arrest you, or any arresting authority arrests you, and is investigating you for even murder, and so on, you have a right to refuse to cooperate. You have a right to refuse to cooperate. The relevant agency, police, whatever, has a right to compel you to appear. They can go to court for a warrant of arrest and so on. But you as the individual are not under any obligation to present yourself or to contribute to the building of evidence against you. That's what the law says. And I think that this needs to be respected. Now, there's a very serious maxim in the administration of law in our country, and which is that everybody is innocent until proven guilty by a competent court. Not just a court, but a competent court. Which means that the court which claims to have proven you guilty must have jurisdiction over the matters before it. Okay? So as we stand now, today, yes, we can be glib about it. We can call Mr. Ofori Atta a criminal and so on. That's just being glib about it. There is no basis today for referring to Mr. Ofori Atta as a criminal. He's not a criminal, he has not been convicted by any court, that does not mean that he should not be investigated. He should be investigated. I will be happy if he's investigated. And I'll be happy if it's investigated because of all the allegations which have been made, all the claims which have been made, and so on. Claims about conflict of interest, and so on, about so many things. And so on. We need to bring these matters to some finality. You understand? For example, it has been alleged that Data Bank became transaction advisors for the loans that we took, and that Data Bank gained financially from those transactions. Is that true or not? We need to establish the fact. And if that is true, we need to raise more questions and so on. So I have no difficulty, no problem whatsoever with Office of Special Prosecutor, Attorney General, the police, Yoko, or any such institution trying to establish the facts, trying to build up empirical evidence for dealing with these allegations and claims against Mr. Ofori Atta. Now, what is the crux of the matter? What is leading to his declaration as a wanted man? And so on. The special prosecutor claims that he was invited to come and assist with investigations. That through his lawyers, some kind of medical, he says that is not an authentic medical report, but something from a hospital was sent to his office indicating that Mr. Ofori Atta is unwell and would therefore be able to avail himself for these investigations. The special prosecutor does not believe that this medical report is authentic or has any value. He says that this so-called medical report does not indicate that Mr. Ofori Atta is incapable of coming back to the jurisdiction to assist with investigations. Fine. So it may well be, from the special prosecutor's point of view, that the medical report is defective. That does not confirm or deny the fact that the man could be indisposed. Because if the medical report is defective, it doesn't mean that the man is not indisposed, and so on. So, if the lawyers of Mr. Ofori Atta or Mr. Ofori Atta himself is able to present an authentic medical report which confirms his indisposition, why issue an arrest warrant? I don't know. Maybe people who are better vexed in the law and so on, maybe we'll be able to explain. Now, I've spoken to a number of lawyers, and what strikes me is the disagreement amongst lawyers. I've spoken to lawyers of mine, friends of mine who are lawyers, long-standing, lawyers, and they cannot agree. Some actually say that the Office of Special Prosecutor or prosecution or whatever cannot issue wanted notices and so on. Some say that he cannot, and that only a competent court can do so. Some have argued that he can do so as an investigating authority. I'm not going there. All I want to do is to demonstrate that this is a contentious issue and that there are two sides to it. Finish. Okay. Now, the Office of Special Prosecutor, I think that there's a huge problem with its very origin. Okay? And many of us spoke out, but unfortunately nobody listened to us, and nobody has listened to us up to today. The reason why the office was created, according to the former president Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, was that he didn't want prosecutions for corruption and other issues to be tainted with politics. And that because the Attorney General is appointed by him and works in his cabinet, there will be a tendency to reduce such prosecutions to a political fight and so on. So they wanted to insulate the prosecution of corruption and so on from this political propaganda and so on. That was the objective. Now for me, that is very strange thinking, having regard to the fact that even the special prosecutor is also appointed by the president. Like the Attorney General, the special prosecutor is also appointed by the president. So, what is the difference? Baffling. Completely baffling. Okay. Then you go into a constitution and then you realize that the power to prosecute is vested solely in the Attorney General. But somehow, in our frenzy to do the bidding of the then president and so on, we said, oh, we can actually take some of those powers and give it to a special prosecutor. On what basis, under what law? It doesn't make any sense. If you want to give the power to prosecute to another institution and so on, you needed to amend the Constitution. We refused to amend the Constitution, and we came up with this contraption, which has now become a problem for everybody. You understand? We came up with this contraption, foolish contraption, which has now become a problem for everybody. Now, there is this vexed issue of the current Attorney General discontinuing cases in the courts. And people have said all kinds of things about it. Senator, it costs a lot of money to prosecute people. It takes national resources to prosecute people. Those who carry on prosecutions have a duty to ensure that they are not wasting public funds. Okay? And I believe that it is for this reason that the Attorney General was given the powers to discontinue, cases in the courts. It is for this reason that the Attorney General has powers to decide what to prosecute and not to prosecute. You understand? And I, unlike my brother Atik, believes that if you prosecute a case for 8 years and there's no headway, it's an indication that the case must be very weak. That the grounds for that case must be very weak. 8 years! Why? 8 years! But even beyond that are also other indicators. In the case of this gentleman from the Bank of Ghana and so on, the facts are that the recommendation to discontinue the case came up way before Mahama came to power. I'm sure all of you are privy to that information. That the prosecutors recommended that the case should be discontinued, and Godfrey Dami, then Attorney General, disagreed with them and continued. So we know that even before the elections were won by the NDC and Mahama, within the establishment responsible for prosecution, there have been doubts about whether the case had any merit or not. That's clear. Now, the other thing for me is that that case is about some funds that the Bank of Ghana was making available to this bank, UMB, I suppose, which was in some distress and so on. Now, we are told that that facility that the Bank of Ghana gave to UMB had a huge collateral, and therefore there could be no financial loss to the state, because all that the Bank of Ghana had to do in case of default was to fall on the collateral. Why prosecute such a case? Somebody must explain to me. Why prosecute such a case? such a useless, foolish, nonsensical case? Why prosecute it and waste our resources? So, I don't find anything wrong with the decision which has been made by Mr. Dominic Ayine, or Dr. Dominic Ayine, or Honorable Dominic Ayine, current Attorney General, with regards to that case. Then there's the case of Dr. Opuni. The argument was that, or the case against him was that they had brought in some fertilizer which was of low standards. Master, I followed that case so very closely. And I heard farmers come to court. The farmers themselves will come to court to say that when they applied that fertilizer, their yields increased. If I'm lying, tell me. One farmer said that the year he applied that fertilizer, how the cocoa flowered, he had never seen some before. I heard scientists come to court and testify that even the methods that were used in testing the fertilizer, which formed the basis of the prosecution, were wrong scientifically and so on. And we carried on prosecution for 8 years. Now, if this is not malicious prosecution, what else can be malicious prosecution? So, we wanted this case to continue, just for continuing sake. Then, after 12 years, 13 years, 15 years, an impartial judge will look at the case, look at the facts, and say that, oh, you have wasted Opuni's time. You have wasted our resources, and so on. Why don't you cut it short now, given what we know about the Opuni case? Given what we know about the Opuni case. Today, I'm sitting here saying that I'm completely disgusted by the treatment of Mr. Ken Ofori Atta. Then, I look back, and I remember how Opuni was treated. And I'm sure all of you remember how Opuni was treated. His arrest, he's being driven somewhere to his hometown, somewhere on the border in the Bonhoeffer region, northern part of Bonhoeffer region. The ordeal he went through in Kumasi and so on. I remember all of that vividly. Ken Ofori Atta has not suffered 10%.
Let him stop.
Okay, if you say 1%, 1%. Ken Ofori Atta has not suffered, as you say, 1% of what Opuni went through. So if we are crying for Ken Ofori Atta today, we must weep for Dr. Opuni, who was completely mistreated and so on. Then there's the case of Atufosin and Richard Jakpa. I mean, so obvious. If you heard the telephone conversation between the Attorney General and Richard Jakpa, my brother, how can you in good faith, how can you in any honesty insist that that trial should continue? I heard on that, in that telephone conversation, Attorney General telling an accused person to go and fake evidence and put before the court. Go and fake evidence that you are sick. Get a fake medical report and send it to the court. Where is the good faith in that? That case is a useless case. Absolutely useless case which needed to be dropped. And on the tape, we all heard what had happened. And nobody has denied the authenticity of that tape. You understand? So you hear things like, oh, you are not the person we are looking for. Who are you looking for? So somebody you are not looking for is standing trial. For what? Huh? And you insist that we must go on with this case. You see, I don't know if the press conference which was held by Mr. Dami, former Attorney General, was at his own instance or he was advised to do it. But if he was advised to do it, whoever advised him must be his number one enemy. Because the final analysis, it did him no good at all. No good at all. We should frown on malicious prosecution of citizens. In much the same way that we frown on the abuse of the rights of citizens. The same, malicious prosecution is the same. It may be even worse than ordinary abuse of the rights of citizens and so on. So we should frown on it. Then there is this whole business of aura. Sana, aura. And I beg you, listen to me very carefully. I mean, I'm just simply shocked by the claim by some of the leaders of the NPP that why is aura targeting only NPP people? And that it should also target NDC people and so on. I'm sitting by saying, hey, where is this coming from? Master, if all the evidence so far gathered shows that only NPP people have committed these offenses, only NPP people will be targeted. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're an NPP man and you firmly believe that NPP leaders and office holders and so on should not be targeted alone, then you must have some information that NDC people too have done some things which are wrong. You understand what I'm saying? Now, if you have information that there are some NDC people too who have done the same things for which the NPP people are being accused and may be investigated and so on, what do? Bring the information. If you bring the information and it is ignored, then you can make noise. But you're saying that we should all be treated equally. If you charge one NDC man, you should charge one NPP man. You just charge by heart without any basis. Do you have the basis? If you have the basis, bring it forward. Simple. This one is not any big matter. There's no mangana in this one. Straightforward. You have the evidence, bring it. And if you bring it and it's ignored, then you can make the noise. You understand? This is not like, some games that we used to play when we were children. One here, one there, one here, one there. No! This is evidence-driven. In the beginning, they claimed that Aura had no legal authority. And some of them were asking, is it a commission of inquiry? Is it a presidential commission? And so on. My brother, under the laws of Ghana, any and every citizen has a right to investigate corruption. To the extent that we even have what is referred to as citizens' arrest. Beyond gathering the information, you Senate sitting here, you can arrest criminals. Hand them over to the security agencies. It's not against the law. What did President Mahama do? He had been elected as President of the Republic. A lot of complaints were coming to him. He was dealing with so many things in the transitional period. All kinds of ambassadors wanted to see him.
Yes, so one of the media personalities are me mega personally, me admire a lot. And I can boldly say he is my role model at the BMC because how he submit himself to certain discussions, sometimes ayana a fekeke. Yellow Kwesi Pratt Junior when you on your crowd. Even yet the constitution in the 1992 constitution na Kwesi Pratt eka hubi. So Kwesi Pratt Junior eba abonti na oka nsem bia e wo se yiti ni ye asopam na ye fomu aba ono eba ni coup ene nema wo fomu pen and onim enema coup betimi aye e de ti oman ene onim enema coup betimi aye e de ama oman enti se okasa tia se how Ken Ofori Atta the fee was raided now na chese eye no kware. But as to say Mahama Ayariga eba abontin abe apologize no ono no so onte ase majority leader Mahama Ayariga ami say me we me madwin kire o we me madwin kire ami say NDC for leadership in parliament no is becoming weaker. Have you realized it? As NDC for under this under this 9th parliamentary when majority no said na etie in if parliament require munya majority na 137 na mo share equal, but we are Ghana for a day majority ni na mama no. It seems say you are not appreciated or you don't appreciate it to the extent say to the bia members of parliament ni being called enti omutimi declare parliament omutimi adjoin parliamentary business, which is wrong. And nina kamfwa eye the leadership in parliament, the leader of government business Mahama Ayariga leadership style with the me na mesi en kana kware eye too weak ubedi so nche onyenya 2 weeks I mean onyenya 2 months, but ami say the ekoso no it's like you're too weak for that. We need somebody like na Haruna Idrisu atofo se nom no matimi ahodu the parliament, but ene de ekoro ami say your parliament no is getting weaker. And it is sad. The Parliament of Ghana aban otiso ewo overwhelming majority over the mighty and the heaviest majority no na untimi emfa nye de wosoye na untimi emfa nchechiro oman de. It is a wake up call to the NDC enche bia ena mo nkrofo munuanom obi bia MPP for ye ka kire omo si ade amu ye de waban mu no enye ye ka ya omo ntie ena Ghana for ye soe ena ye ka se ampa muna ya to ba ya yi mistake ato ba yi mo ba mo ntwen December beba ya mi kan na no NDC mama Ghana ni bia no enka se eye den December 7th beba mun take decisions na mo ankasa munye adwuma na mo man no fa no to pamfra because minim se ka obi atade o hye no parliament nko anka Ghana ni nkoto aba because mfa no Ghana for they voted for NDC because they want change. They want absolutely change. Omope change. Inti se kobase ye to aba de ma na okugina parliament na opopa achew wo mreku ni kwan so pa achew then you becoming useless. Excuse my language. Mahama Ayariga ura kika ho ye oniema ye e magana for bunfu e magana for reject mo. And these are you people you will suffer in opposition. Mark my words. It's way and summer yura Kwesi Pratt Junior so or the two edwa. It's my info we see mesro so subscribe to your channel now like it no share na for any be ahwe hanom your #1 authentic platform Mega TV ayi guswa 7 with the best of news ever. Nti yebesro so be subscribe. Ma michi ba for United States of America ma mi akopon hiraw. Ma mi bi UK akopon hiraw ma mi no bi bia hwe be TV no. Yakopon koso hiraw busia. Ye da ekoso ye ni pitiri. Ma mi fa wonsi yakopon hiraw bi bia bye bye.